In this video for Chapter 3, we are going to discuss our food cost percentage as well as developing and creating our standardized recipes. And so we're first going to talk about how to calculate our food cost percentage and then also the importance of standardized recipes as we try to control our costs and be consistent in the production. So why do managers care about the cost of our sales? In the previous video, we talked about the cost of our goods sold, how much money it took us to prepare all of that food. And so we're looking at the cost of our sales because when we sell something, we are getting a specific dollar amount, the menu price. Now, what we actually use in the production of that item needs to stay fairly consistent. Otherwise, if we use too much product, then we're going to be losing our profit. If we're not using enough of an ingredient or an item, then the guest's expectation may change. And so they may not like to order that in the future. So there's lots of different reasons why we are looking at our cost of our sales. Because the bottom line is, the more we spend on something, that's going to affect our profit or our bottom line. Okay, so let's use an example. Let's say we have a filet mignon, and we sell our filet mignon for $45. Okay, that is our menu price. And let's say it cost us $20. That is our expenses. So let's say the server forgets to ask how the guest wants their meat prepared, and they go ahead and just guess medium. Okay, that's kind of middle of the line. Well, the guest really likes their filet mignon medium rare. And so the steak comes out, it's overcooked. We have to go back and recook that. So now we are spending another $20 because this steak is being thrown away. We're spending another $20 to recreate and re-prepare that meal. So now, instead of getting a $25 contribution margin, we now have only a $5 contribution margin. So that's the reason why we care about the cost of our sales and making things the same. We can look at our cost as a percentage. Now, this first example shows our food cost as a percentage for an entire period, but we can also apply the same concepts to one single item. The tool that we use, remember, is our triangle. Cost, percent, sales. The horizontal line represents division, and the vertical line represents multiplication. Okay, and so let's use this tool here to calculate our food cost percentage. So to remember, when we manipulate this tool, we're going to erase or cover up what tool or what number we are looking for. Okay, and so what's left is our food cost of $5,722. We divide that by $18,900, which is our sales, and we'll get a specific answer. So go ahead and calculate that and see what answer you get. Number 2 is for just one specific item. Okay, and so the same thing applies. We have our cost of $1.35. We divide that by our $4 menu price or selling price, and we will get a specific number. I'm going to go ahead and pause for a moment for you to work these two problems out, and I'll come back with the answers. All right, so for number 1, we got 0.4 30.027. When we multiply by 100 and move that decimal place over 2, we get 30.27, and we're going to go ahead and make that 30.3%. Okay? For the next one, $1.35 divided by $4, we get 33.75. We move that over 2 places, and we would get 33.8%. Did your answers match mine? So now let's look at an example about how our cost and our sales can actually affect our food cost percentage. So let's take a look at our sales price and our food cost for these two chicken and lamb entrees. Okay, let's have an example where we sell 50 chickens and 10 lamb entrees. So let's do our cost first. 50 times 3 is $150 for the chicken, and 10 times 12 is $120 for the lamb. So we have $270 as our total cost for these 60 menu items. Now let's look at our sales. So 50 times 12 is $600, and 10 times 32 is $320. So we have $920 is our total sales for this particular 60 menu items. So now if we're going to find out what our percentage is, we do $270 divided by our 920, and we get a 29.3% food cost. So now let's flip those two numbers. Let's do 10 chicken and 50 lamb. So our cost is going to be for 10, $30 for the chicken and $600 for our lamb. So that's $630 is our total cost. Now, from the sales side of things, let's do our sales. 10 times 12 is $120, and 50 times 32 is $1,600. So that gives us a total of $1,720 in our sales. Okay? If we divide those two numbers, 630 divided by 1720, then we actually get a 36.6% food cost. Okay, because we sold items that had a much higher food cost percentage. We sold more of them. And so if we're looking at our food cost percentage, you can see here that the mix of how we sell things is going to have an impact on our food cost percentage. As a server, I am looking at my tips as a percentage of my sales. So if I'm looking at 20% percentage of my sales as my tip, well, me as a server, I'm going to start selling more lamb because it's going to drive up my ticket price and of the check, and then that way my tip will in turn be higher. From a restaurant operational side, sometimes it's better to serve more of the lower cost items, and that way it kind of helps manage our food cost percentage. So let's look here. We have an ideal food cost of 31.5%. Our actual food cost is 33.4%. So that's an unfavorable variance of 1.9%. Well, what does that mean? Well, what that actually means, because this 1.9%, let's say it's 2%. Well, what is 2% of $1? 2% of $1 equals 2 cents. That means every dollar bill that we are coming in for sales, 2 cents of that is over our initial budgeted ideal food cost. That means 2 cents of every dollar. Now, when we're talking about 2 cents from a dollar, that's not a big deal. But when we start adding zeros and we're talking about $1 million, well, 2% of that $1 million, if we take 1 million and we times that by 0.02, that's $20,000. And so this 2% right here can make a huge difference when it comes to controlling our food costs. And you can see it here reflected in the dollars amount. Okay, our ideal food cost is $12,450, but our actual was $13,215, which means we spent $765 more than what we actually wanted to spend. That's a problem. So let's talk about standardized recipes. This is how we can control those costs. When we develop our standardized recipe, we are going to see how it's prepared. We're going to take all the measurements. We're going to taste it. We're going to test it. If it's great, then we're going to go ahead and put it into production. If not, we have to go back and tweak it and change things a little bit, kind of adjust until it is perfect. Okay. We want to make sure our product specifications are in place. And just like a previous discussion, we have quality and quantity product specifications. So quality is maybe the type, a thing about the ingredient. Quantity is the number of ingredients that go into a recipe. So a couple things to think about when you're costing out a standardized recipe. Volume and weight are not always equal. So 1 cup of flour does not weigh 8 ounces. Pretty much the only thing that's equal is water. Water weighs the same as the volume amount. So 8 ounces of water is also going to weigh 8 ounces. Also, our cost per our unit must match our recipe unit. So as we purchase something, like I said before, we buy a 50-pound bag of flour, but we're only using 2 pounds of that flour. And so we want to make sure that our units are matching so that we can easily convert our recipe and standardize it. So let's talk about the steps. First, you're going to copy the recipe as given. Always make sure you include units, because that way you know exactly what unit you are going to. Okay? Fill in the ingredients in the same order, that way you don't miss anything. Fill in your as purchased cost. Break down the as purchased price to the cost of 1 recipe unit. So make those units match. And then multiply the cost per unit by the amount needed. And then total all of your ingredient costs. So that's kind of a quick 35-second introduction. Let's break it out a little bit more. So here's our standard recipe for pasta sauce. Okay, we have pasta sauce, we have the yield, so it makes 3 quarts. It gives us 24 portions, and our standard portion size is 4 ounces. This is important to control the number of portions we get out of this pasta sauce, because we're going to be able to identify what that cost is exactly for those 4 ounces. Once we have that cost for those 4 ounces, then we are going to use that to identify what we are going to sell our pasta sauce for. Okay? And so we have our ingredients here, our full list, and then we have our procedure. So now let's look. We're going to copy the recipe as given. So that was the previous page, right? And we're going to do it in the exact same order as the recipe. So here's step number 2, and we're going to copy it in the exact order of the recipe. That way we don't miss any ingredients, okay? Now, we're going to fill in step number 3. We're going to fill in our as purchased. So that comes from our invoice, okay? Our invoice purchase and our unit. So we purchased $112 worth, it's 4 gallons of olive oil. We also purchased 50 pounds of onions for $16.50 and so forth. Okay, so that's our as purchased. Step number 4 says that we break down our unit into one recipe unit, okay? And so our unit for our recipe is pints. And so we want to break this $112 down into what it's going to cost for 1 pint. All right, so we're going to talk about how we do that, and you're going to get lots of practice, trust me, okay? Then the 5th step is to multiply by the amount that you need. So it's 350 times 1 pint, and we're going to multiply that to get our 350, okay? Our onions are 33 cents per pound, and we need a half a pound. So 33 times 0.5 gives us 17 cents. We do that all the way down, and then step number 6, finally, is we add up all the totals. So we get our total of $7.88 for this recipe. It prepares 24 portions, so we can divide that total cost by 24 to give us 33 cents per portion cost of our spaghetti sauce. Now that's where it becomes important to manage our cost. If our prep cook decides, or our line cook decides, that 4 ounces is not enough sauce for the pasta, and they maybe add 6 ounces of sauce, well then that's going to affect the actual cost of that amount of sauce they're putting in that recipe. So we want to have a standardized recipe so that way we can identify what the cost is per portion. And then that will help us identify what we're going to sell our menu item.